welcome to Connected Conversations for Creatives, a place where creatives like you can learn, grow, and connect. I'm your host, Jennifer Carr. Have you ever wondered what it takes to truly connect with your creativity? What drives a writer to explore the depths of their imagination and bring forth stories that captivate and inspire? Creativity is not just about putting words on a page or paint on a canvas. It's about delving into the heart of your thoughts, your emotions, and experiences to create something unique and impactful. As creatives, we often face the challenge of staying inspired and finding new ways to express our ideas. Well, how do you stay connected to your creative muse? Do you have a process that helps you channel your thoughts into your work? Whether you're a writer, an artist, or any other type of creative, the journey of creation is filled with highs and lows, moments of doubt, and bursts of inspiration. It's a path that requires both discipline and spontaneity, structure and freedom. And today we're diving into the world of writing with someone who has mastered the art of storytelling. Our guest has a unique approach to writing that blends fiction and nonfiction, offering insights into the creative process that can inspire us all. With multiple novels under his belt and a passion for crafting layered narratives, he brings a wealth of experience to our conversation. His current work includes an exciting nonfiction project about the legendary band Duran Duran, and he is eager to share his expertise on how to connect and structure a biography. So join me in welcoming Martin Tracey, a prolific author whose work not only entertains but also inspires. Martin, it is so great to have you on the show. Welcome, and thank you for being here.
You're very welcome. The pleasure is definitely all mine. So thank you for having me, Jennifer. And I'm looking forward to talking to you over the next course of an hour or whatever it is.
Yeah, wherever we go. Listen, I've had them go upwards of 2 hours, and those are always fun for me. But the listeners are a little less excited. But I don't care. This is about me right now. No, I'm just kidding. That's not where we are.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it is so great to have you on the show. Now, start by telling us a little bit about your background and what got you started in writing. Is that something you've always wanted to do?
Yeah, I kind of found out that I wasn't too bad with words quite early age, and many moons ago. I was about 6 or 7, and for my school, my primary school, as we called it, you call it something else over in America.
Elementary, yeah.
Little school, little people school. I won 2 back-to-back competitions. One was about a magic ice cream van that helped kids cross the road, and the other was about we was given the title "Building Sites Bite." So it was about like a health, bit of a strange topic actually for kids thinking about it, but it's about health and safety, about not climbing onto building sites that are there. So, and I can't remember exactly what the story was there, but that kind of gave me an early inclination that actually if I've won 2 back-to-back national competitions, I must be all right. And I've always liked creative. I've had a wild imagination, since I can remember. But then what happened was really I still worked with words, but it was in the form of songwriting. Music, I guess, was my first love. I grew up with my dad's Elvis Presley records, which was, it just blew me away. Elvis, even at a very young age, with his voice, his charisma and everything. I discovered the Beatles all by myself, so I wanted to be in bands. And in the 80s, I got into George Michael and that sort of music. And so I started to write songs and put a few bands together in Birmingham, in England, and had some moderate success. Did get a couple of interviews down in London in a couple of the record companies, but alas, ultimately, as much as I enjoyed it and being on stage, it wasn't to be an actual bona fide pop star career, shall we say. So I just thought, you know what, I'm going to go back to, I like writing and creating anyway. There's all different avenues, isn't there? You can have painting, which I'm not very good at. I can't draw to save my life.
Me neither.
But, well, not everyone, but, personally, I think I have that creative kind of side to me, and mine came through music and words. And so I wrote a book thinking I'll only ever write the one. There's that old saying, everyone's got a book in them. So I wrote the one, and then I just got the bug. I got hooked, and I just kept going and still am. So yeah, that's kind of
I
where I am.
love that. No, it is addictive. It is very addictive. And
Yeah.
I love when people say I got started with music, because music was always my first creative outlet. I've always loved words. I've always loved writing. But music is always one of those things that it stirs something so deep inside of me. And so I've just always loved it. And so when people are like, I started with music, and I'm like, me too. And I just love finding that kindred spirit.
Mm.
It's so fun. So, okay, so the stage was not for you, but words were for you, and you wrote songs, but then you moved into novel writing.
Mhm.
Which one? Do you have a preference between lyrics and novel writing? Do you still write lyrics?
I don't actually, no. It's funny because when I was a songwriter, you used to get, and this was before the days of technology to a certain degree. I'm giving my age away, but you didn't have notes on an iPhone or anything like that you could do. So basically, I used to get ideas for lyrics at the most stupid and inconvenient time. You know what I mean? I used to like write on the back of envelopes and things that had come through the post, bills that my mum and dad were getting. I was writing on them bills. Just these little snippets of lyrics to then build the song. What has happened now is that kind of happens to me now. Like I get weird sort of ideas at the most inconvenient time, and what I do, I text myself. I send myself a little text so I don't lose that idea for a future. So it's funny how that process still happens with the ideas pinging into my head, but it is very much now more for book content as opposed to lyrical content. But the difference between lyrics, I guess, and novels are, lyrics. You're looking for rhymes, really. It's like poetry, really, isn't it? And I tend not to write poetry, which is, I don't really know why. But I do enjoy the process of novel writing. I just love that whole process of going from A to Z, and everything that falls in between. I just love it.
Oh, yeah, me too. You spend a lot more time in this fantasy land, and I think sometimes for me, because I write lyrics. That's kind of a new development that I've really started enjoy doing.
Mm,
But you do have to kind of feel when you're writing lyrics,
mm,
whereas when I'm
mm.
writing my novels, I'm just like I'm in a happy place, hanging out with invisible friends. I guess,
Yeah,
which sounds a
yeah.
little crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I'll never say never. That's a big saying
Yeah.
of mine. Never say never. I could go back to the music again. I'm still really good friends with a couple of people I was in the bands with, and we every now and then when we've had a few beers and that we go, oh, we should do it again, yeah, but we never do. We never do. We have all these great ideas in the pub, but
Isn't that where they all come from?
yeah, exactly. But music is something I enjoy now as a receiver as opposed to a creator. You see what I
Yeah,
mean?
no, that's perfectly fair. Okay, so you have published several novels. Just
Mhm.
when was your first novel released? When did you put that first one out there, and what was that process like for you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Because I'll tell you why. Hopefully, I won't bore you, but there's quite a good story, no pun intended, behind it.
Intend your puns. Always intend your puns.
So it was about 10 years ago. Beneath the Floodlights was my first book, and it's a bit of a wacky one. This gives you straight away an insight into how my mind works. It was about vampires taking over a soccer team. Okay, we call it a football team in
Right.
England, but football is something else to you guys over there. So I came up with this idea of vampires taking over a soccer team because I love soccer, but I also, as a young lad even, really loved all them Hammer House horror films, your vampires, all that imagery of gothicness and everything. And then the Lost Boys come along, fantastic film. Loved the concept of that. Loved From Dusk Till Dawn. So I kind of wanted to write a soccer novel, but wanted to write a vampire novel. So I've done the two at the same time. Now this is the story and the learning behind it, and I think this is good for maybe some of your listeners to listen to. Although I got it out there, I had a pretty bad experience in terms of I went with it weren't a traditional publisher, so it's self-published, but self-published through a company. If you know them sort of companies that exist,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to name them because I don't want to get sued. But it was a very expensive option. I was a bit daunted, and like a lot of authors tell me with their first book, I didn't engage really with an editor. I thought my English was good enough at that stage to get me through, but there was typos and things I'm certainly not proud of and would not release now in this day and age. So that was a bit of a battle to get from that contract, if you like, although it wasn't a real contract in the truest sense, but have it all reimagined, if you like. The story always stood up. It was always a great story. I always stand by the story, but now it's a proper, like, professional kind of edit. And that's the only one that was the learning for me, that if you're going to be an indie author, self-published author, then it makes sense to get as much as you can ready to go.
Yes.
On the flip side of that, don't, because I still know people now who want to be writers who have years and years later they've just not put it out because they're just so scared. Because it can be daunting. You're bearing your soul to the world, aren't you, when you write a book? But there has got to come a point. You've got to let it go, guys. You've got to write a book and get it out there. You've got to do it if that's what you want to do. So it's always a bit scary. But what I learned from that was that get it as good as it damn well can be before it goes out there. Big learning curve. It helped me learn a lot about the industry, and I'm better for it now. Better writer for it now. I'm actually really good now, I think, at actually proofreading myself and spotting typos and all this malarkey, But don't be afraid to seek the help of other people, because fresh eyes they'll always spot something, won't they? Always spot something, because you're so close to your thing. So it doesn't hurt to get a bit of someone you trust, a bit of their know-how and insight.
Yes. Oh man, that first book makes you look back. It humbles you. Humbles you. That whole experience, rereading it, and I would not exchange that experience, however, for anything. I love it because I have only self-published all of my work, and I love that because there is so much freedom and control to be had, which I'm a fan of. But at the same time, I have an editor. Like, I pay an editor for that reason. I use beta readers for that reason, because I go back and read that first book and I'm like, whew, I am pretty sure that is not the name that I meant to put there. It's stuff like that. You're just like, wow, how did I miss that? But you're right. Like, put other people's eyes on your work as soon as you can.
Totally. But Beneath the Floodlights, it's I'm really, really proud of it again, even though it's my first book. As a story, as you know, it's quite unique. It's about soccer and vampires together. And I still stand by the story. It's a great story, but it reads like a professional job now, where before it was a great story, but it didn't read like a professional job. So there you go. So it's all good. It's all good now. It's all good in the end. So there you go.
That's right. Well, that's the whole process, right? You learn. Are you still self-published, or have you gone traditional since then?
No, I'm still self-published. There's a couple of things that with my non-fiction work that could potentially take me into traditional publishers. But like you and the people I'm working with and the people I work with are very much of the same mindset. It's that control, isn't it? Self-publishing, you have got that pure control of what your baby is, and what it can look like and everything. Notwithstanding, as we said, you should get other people's opinions and that, but that's people you trust, and the Duran Duran books, they're done through an independent publisher, APS Publications. So I guess that's a bit of a hybrid approach between self-publishing and a traditional publisher. I don't know how they'd explain, how they'd actually say, but this is a publisher that's published loads, and that's the publications I've worked with as well to do the discographies. So what a discography is a very short biography of a musical artist, and then all the artwork, and logs all their different records that have been released over the years with the album artwork and everything. So I've contributed to this publication, APS Publications. I've got over 200 discographies, and I'm just one author who's done some of them. So I've done George Michael, John Lennon, Amy Winehouse, quite topical at the moment with the Back to Black movie out. Black Sabbath, Duran Duran.
Love it.
I said George Michael, didn't I? I'm sure I've missed one. Oh, Fuzzbox, who I'm now doing their full biography. That's a Birmingham all-female band, and it's really exciting times at the moment because I'm working with them to write their biography. And as they started out as musical artists in the 1980s as this all-girl band, it was quite unheard of at the time, especially an all-girl band that played their own instruments. They were an indie band, so their music was indie. They went on to become sign a deal in America with Geffen, WEA Records. So their tale is a good one to tell, and it's brilliant working with Maggie and Vix from that band. But they're very much, because they get the indie thing about being in control of your product. This is, we're seeking. Well, we're testing the water, I guess, with traditional publishers and seeing what they can do for us. And whether if the deal's good, yeah, we'll go for it. Mm-hmm. But it is about, we're very invested in telling the story authentically, and having control over it. It's not about sensationalizing it. It's a good story. Don't get me wrong, a really good story. But it's about it's not going to be like tabloidy. Do you know what I mean? It's going to be a proper story that we want to own and we want to tell. So it's been brilliant working with them. So look out for that next year. We've got a Fuzzbox and we're going to use it. That's the name of their band. So why are they called that? Because when they started off as this indie band, they didn't have a name. This is how, and they were going on stage, and the sound men said, "Well, what's your name then?" And they had a Fuzzbox, which is like a distortion pedal for a guitar. And Maggie just says, "We've got a Fuzzbox, we're going to use it," and it stuck, and that was it. That's how they got their name. So
I love that. Oh,
more gems like this are in the book when you come to read it, ladies and gentlemen. So
that's fantastic. And see, I love that you're still in the music world without being in the music world and in the writing world. That's so awesome. So and I love that there are so many options for your publishing experiences, right? Like you do have that total control when you go full indie. But I love a good hybrid publisher too, because there are some of us who have no, I've not used one, but I have a similar situation because I may as well go hybrid because I have an editor that I work very closely with. I pay my editor, that kind of thing. I'm not the only one editing. And so I love, and then with your nonfiction, you do have a better chance of reaching an audience with a traditional publisher when you're doing nonfiction because that one is hard to market. Like they know how to market a nonfiction book. I wouldn't even know where to start. I struggle with marketing my fiction books,
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah. And, I don't think that we all have in our mind that as soon as you go traditional that they do all the marketing, but I've talked to so many traditionally published authors that they do their own marketing too. There may be a higher budget somewhere for them to use it, but at the same time, they're still responsible for putting their work out there, which is fun. Fun in quotes, like, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you're exactly right because from what I'm understanding with the evolvement of the industry, self-publishing, it should be respected. The self-published writers out there they're fantastic, and there's so many now that have people I've met who were traditionally published and they've now chosen to go self-published simply because they've got the control. You can get a better deal with the royalties and all that malarkey. So, and as you quite rightly said, even unless you're probably in the big ether of the real Premier League, as we call it, Champions League of authors, then even if you're traditionally published, you've got to put the hard work in. You've got to do the graft. It's down to you to market. And at least if you're self-publishing, you're only accountable to yourself. If you're marketing and a book is perceived not to be selling as it should, then what's a traditional publisher going to do? They're going to start saying, well, what's happening? Why isn't it selling? We're not getting a second or third book off you. Forget that, mate. You're out. Do you know what I mean? It's all, I don't want to sound negative, but these are some of the pitfalls that you can fall into. So traditional publishing is for some people, there's a place. Self-publishing is for some people in the place. But what I guess my advice is be careful and be quite informed about what path you take. What path you take. Make sure it's right for you.
Absolutely, because you know yourself, you know your motivation level, because you do have to be self-motivated. You have to be a
Yeah.
self-starter when you go self-publishing. You need to surround yourself with honest people that you can trust, and that's hard sometimes. And but yeah, there are so many pitfalls. But we see the
Mm.
glamour of the traditional because
Yeah.
we think what Stephen King
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Of course.
all the big names out there
Yeah.
that you're just
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, that's I need to be just like them. No, you need to be you. Your book is
Yeah.
not Stephen King's books.
Yeah.
Like, that's a different story, and
Yeah.
you have a story to tell your way. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, so your writing covers both fiction and nonfiction.
Uh-huh.
How do you decide which format you're in the mood to write?
It's tended to be what's kind of come to me, which is a really weird. John Lennon. I'm a big Beatles fan, and I'll probably quote John Lennon more than once today. But he says life is what happens when you're busy making other plans, and it's so true.
Mm.
So I kind of about a year ago, I left my day job, and I was financially able to concentrate on more on my writing rather than it being a pastime. Although it has to be something you enjoy, I'm sure you get that, Jennifer. And I thought, you know what? I've done 4 of the Judd Stone novels. This is a book series I do about an anti-hero, Private Eye, and now I can just like whack them series out. The best series always come one after the other.
Yes.
Mine come 1 to 2 years and between the books isn't right. And I thought, you know what, I'll be able to do this now. I'll be able to smash out. And I started writing book 5 and book 6 together, which is quite ambitious, but it was worth it. And then all of a sudden, I get this Duran Duran project land in my lap. I get another. I was already doing the Fuzzbox book, but quite rightly, we've pressed the sort of accelerator down on that to get that done. And then I've started doing a biography with a gentleman called Robin George, who is a guitarist and record producer who's worked with people from Def Leppard. People from Deep Purple. He worked with Phil Lynott from Thin Lizzy. He had his own career in the 80s. Sadly, Robin passed away in April, so I was only just getting to know him and to write his biography. So I'm having to finish it now with the family and fans and people inputting it. So basically, the Duran Duran books is coming out on the 13th of June. So we're having it's been launched this week. Oh, this one's so exciting! I'm talking to you. So that's really exciting. So that one's done. Apart from any marketing and media that has to go with it, but these other 2 biographies really have, and it's great work, and I'm glad to be doing it. But they've kind of took over what I was going to do in the fiction world. So it's kind of just what's needed at the time. You know what I mean? Quite flexible now. I do want to get back to my fiction writing at some point.
Yeah.
There's only one of me.
Yes, exactly. And we all have at least 7 works in progress going on at one time somewhere in our head.
Yeah. It's like juggling balls or spinning plates.
Which invisible friend's going to talk to me today? Who am I going to sit down with? Yeah. Do you have a preference? Do you prefer?
Oh, that's a great question. I think I love them both equally,
oh well, yeah, you would have to. You can't have a favorite child.
Yeah, I mean, I love the creative process of fiction, and the fact you're making stories up literally. Obviously, biography is you're not making stories up; it's authentic, true to life things. So they're very 2 different disciplines.
Yeah,
and you've got to be zoned in correctly for each one. Saying that, I was really turned. I grew up loving Stephen King and everything, but I was really turned on again to reading with Dan Brown, and when he'd done Angels and Demons and the Da Vinci Code, he really opened my mind to, you know what, you can look at some things that are fiction, or at least perceived fiction, and conspiracy theories and things like this, but and that actually you can actually weave fiction and fact together to create a story, and that's kind of what I do a lot in my fiction. Like the 27 Club, one of the Judd Stone novels is called Club 27, and the 27 Club's always fascinated me, all this tragedy of pop stars, rock artists dying at the age of 27. You know, Amy Winehouse, Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, the list goes on. Kurt Cobain. It's just a phenomenon that's really fascinated me, and I've always wanted to write a story around that. So I gave Judd the job of acting as a bodyguard to a 26-year-old pop star who was she's on trajectory to become a 27 Club member with her lifestyle. But also in parallel, he's trying to work out what's happening here. Why does it keep happening? And he looks at numerology and all sorts of different things to see why on earth this phenomenon keeps happening. So there's an example of, you know, mixing the fact with fiction. It's something I do like to do. And then I guess that makes it, although I do like to push boundaries with my writing, my fiction writing, I guess that does give it a sense of believability, if you know what I mean. Everything's always flipping for me because, you know, books are great for escapism, brilliant, and feeding the imagination and mind. But on the flip side, I want to believe it as well, even if it's a paranormal, supernatural book, which a lot of that stuff comes into my work. Well, yeah, it could have worked. Could have still happened. Someone could have seen a ghost. Yes.
Yeah.
Can vampires join football teams? I'm not sure about that one, but who knows?
They probably could. I mean, as long as all the games were at night, maybe. Like,
yeah.
That's funny. Okay, so that brings me to ask, how much research goes into a book that is fiction with some nonfiction behind it? Like, how much research do you have to do for something like that?
Yeah, I do a lot, to be fair. Mm-hmm. Thank goodness for search engines.
Yeah.
Although with some of the things, I don't know if I hope the police never come knocking on the door.
The FBI will come knocking on my door one day and be like, why are you looking this up?
Yeah. Serial killers, you know, that's one I've looked up. I remember looking up the best way to poison someone. So right. Luckily my wife knows about that. And
how many volts of electricity does it take?
Yeah. Well, in the one, it was Mind Gorilla. I wanted to know about us because it was symbolic to have a scorpion bite, but I also found, and I can't remember the name now, shame on me, but I found this this plant that could be used as a toxic substance that can kill someone, and that in the story it makes sense to have used that like the scorpion because it was symbolic of something, you know what I mean? But you have to look that up then to see. But how long? What is the death like? A bit grim. But what is it? How does that person die? They take that substance. You know, is it frothing at the mouth? Is it a cardiac arrest? What is it? You know. So you have to look all this. I mean, I'm sure you know yourself, Jen, being a writer, that you look up lots of weird and wonderful things. But with the fact, I mean, there's always some form of literary license. You know, Dan Brown did use literary license to tell a story, and you know I do the same, but dates and things that really happened, I try and be as accurate as I can with that. So, and obviously with non-fiction biographies, you that's got to be bang on the money. You can't put anything in that's wrong there. I research a lot, but I enjoy it. I enjoy researching.
I do too. That's that's really one of my favorite parts. I'm a nerd when it comes to like research. I would have stayed in school forever if it wasn't so expensive, and because I love research, I love learning, and so I will be writing, and the next thing you know, I'm like, oh, let's look up how this happened. It has absolutely nothing. I'm not going to write it. I just need to know what my character is probably thinking about or why she would know something, and then I'm off on a tangent of researching something, and I'm like, well, that was probably 2 hours I should have spent writing, but I didn't.
That's the thing. The research it does take its time away from you, doesn't it? It's like, no, totally. I had to look up gambling anonymous societies and things like that, you know, because Judd gets into gambling. So, but you know, unfortunately, I've never been in that position. Right. I have to understand how do them societies operate, them communities operate, you know. So you're always trying to be as authentic as you can to the topic you want to discover, aren't you, or explore or talk about. So.
Oh yeah, because if you're not, somebody's going to call you on it. Like people will say that's not how
Yeah.
that works, and it pulls them from the story because they're
Yeah.
immediately thinking that's not how that works. And so
Yeah.
you do have to keep some semblance of realism in your writing, even if you are writing fiction, because readers are brutal sometimes.
Oh yeah, 100%. Totally agree with you. Yeah. Oh yeah. They'll find something if there's something that that you've done perception
Yes.
incorrect. You'll hear about it.
Listen, I made that up. It's not a real place. That's not a real person.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they are. And so, okay, let's think about readers and being brutal. How do you deal with that as an author? Do you pay attention to what readers are saying, or are there reviews for other readers and not yourself? Because this is a topic I actually had a conversation about last week.
I mean, fortunately, touch wood.
Yeah.
I haven't had anything too, certainly not in writing in a review that's too brutal, unless I just haven't spotted it. The other, I mean, it's about taking a step back and trying to, because we all know there's haters out there, aren't there? There's haters out there. People are going to hate. There's trolls. This is one of the downsides. Social media brings a lot of good stuff, but social media can also be a platform for the wrong kind of thing. And reviews is an extension of that, in my opinion. And people will genuinely give you a nice review if they like your book, but some people, you might just, I don't know, they might just be serial, wanting to get out there and diss people. Who knows? So it's about trying to take a step back and seeing, okay, can I learn from that? And it's difficult, isn't it? Because if it's someone if it's an anonymous or a reader you don't know, you kind of want to learn from it if it can make you better, because none of us are perfect, and there could be something that you've done subconsciously within the story and you go, okay, I get that. So that's okay. But the difficulty is trying to work out, what's the genuine constructive feedback, and what is the actually someone's just been a bit bitter and twisted here. So it's different. I suppose in some ways it's the way the information's presented in a review.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so that's probably helps you decide if it's something you can learn from. Or whether it's just something you put down to experience. I think I do tend to go with the advice that I've heard from other writers, which I think is a good one. Don't ever reply to a bad review.
That was going to be my next question, because so many authors these days are interacting with the readers on their reviews. I could not imagine. Like, I don't even want them to know that I know what they said about my work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If it's especially if it's negative. I mean, I will be honest. If I get a nice review, obviously I'll do sometimes.
Yes. Thank you. Yes.
I'm not going to.
I'll post that everywhere. Yes.
But I wouldn't, because you're just going to get drawn into the weeds, and that doesn't look good from the outside. If they see like this kind of to-in and fro-in argument going on between a reader and a writer, you know what I mean? No, just leave. I mean, you think about all the big names that are in films, music, and all that. They're getting bad reviews all the time. People on TikTok saying things about them and that. They don't respond because you don't dignify it. It doesn't mean it's all true. But what are you going to do? Respond to every single person? That's all you'd be doing.
That can't be good for your mental health either.
Exactly. Totally agree with you.
Oh,
and it's about, I suppose it's about ratio as well, isn't it? If you're getting 20 great reviews to every one or something, that's got to tell you in the main you're doing something right.
Yes.
So that's another way to look at it. If it's balanced, then that helps you work out whether you've got to learn from it, or if it's just you're going to get a bad review every now and then. It's just life.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's true in real life too. Like, people, not every person likes me, and while that's hard for me sometimes,
I find that hard to believe, though, Jen.
Yeah, you would think, but there are just some people who have bad taste. No,
them as well. Yeah, I'm with you.
I'm kidding. I am totally kidding. No, because they are. Because I am not everybody's cup of tea. For some people, I'm tequila. It is what it is. Like you just never know. But that's true for your books too. Like that, your book is not meant for every reader. I don't read every genre. If somebody says, "Hey, read this book," I might check it out. I'm not opposed to reading outside of my normal genres. But just because I like it and you don't, or you like it and I don't, I mean, geez Louise, your book just may not be for me. Though I am really interested in vampires playing soccer now, so.
Brilliant, I'm glad you are.
I'd never heard of that trope before, and so it's really got my attention. That's fantastic. Okay, so let's talk about maybe your writing routines. We can move on. That was just something that popped into my head because we had said something about opinions, but totally not even on the topics that I was going to talk about. Let's talk about your writing routines and habits and how you stay in your creative flow.
Yeah. Okay. Luckily, again, touch wood, I've never been one who's really had kind of writer's block. And, if there's a moment, if a spare window comes to write, I usually can slot into it and do it, which I know I'm very lucky that happens. I do think it's my overactive imagination, really. I mean, once upon a time, I used to really be disciplined and get up before the family got up when my kids were younger and set the alarm, get up before they get up and do a good 2-3 hours writing before they even surface out of bed. Them days are gone.
Right.
And I really just write literally when I get the time. And I guess these days, since I left my day job, I do write most days. It's not for hours on end. Well, it kind of is. It's not quite a working day in the traditional sense, but the good few hours are in there. But the way I work process-wise, I have a framework more than a plan. So I will have chapter titles where I think it's going, but I prefer to have that sort of nugget of an idea and a rough idea of how it's going to evolve, but I'll let the characters and the story and different inspirations take me to the destination. I don't know the ending of the book ever till I'm probably almost there. And I know other authors don't work like that. They're quite structured. But it's just the way I'm wired that, I'm like that in life. I'm not particularly a structured person and I'm kind of all over the place. But it's horses for courses. It's what works for you. But I find having a framework is good because it keeps you on track of sorts. Yeah. But the flexibility has to be in there. Because if you get a light bulb moment at chapter 6, I go, "Woo!
Yeah,
I'm going this way now."
Yes.
So yeah, that's kind of my process, really. My processes are in one.
No, I love that. It's so funny because I write by the seat of my pants. Like I don't know, but I always know how it's going to end before I start writing.
Oh, that's really interesting.
See it in my head, like it plays start to finish as kind of a snapshot of a movie. And so I always know the ending that I'm working toward.
Wow.
And it has yet to change on me. I'm waiting for that day, right? That one day I'm going to know the ending and I'll have to rewrite it because it's not the right ending. But right now, like every book, I've always started with knowing how I'm going to end. As a matter of fact, my current work in progress is I wrote the last 7 chapters before I even started the book because I knew exactly how I wanted it to end. And so we'll see. But that's also a challenge because I have to write myself to that ending. And so the characters kind of get to tell me where we're going. But I'm like, you tell me how we're going to get here. Like this is your final destination. So tell me how we're going to get there. I know it's weird.
No, it's just really interesting how I know another author who knows the last page before she starts. And it's just really interesting how we all have different ways of approaching our craft. But you know what? There's no textbook to it, or there shouldn't. There probably are, but there shouldn't be.
I agree. Oh, I have yet to ever. I've had so many people say, "You should read this book. You should read this book about writing," and I'm like, I cannot make myself read a book about writing because I'm thinking, I like the way I write. It's my
Yeah,
method. It's how I get books
yeah,
out. And I don't want anybody else's opinion on that until somebody says it's not working for you. And then
yeah.
maybe. But right now it's working for me.
Oh, totally. I think you write from your gut and from your heart, don't you?
Yeah.
You know, it's a raw process, and I think when you start to make something formalized, you're probably
Oh,
going to lose a bit of the edge, aren't you? You're going to lose something. You're going to lose some essence of that magic, if I can call it that.
yes. No, I agree wholeheartedly. And what's really funny is because I write romance books, and that there is usually, to the ones that I read, there is a formula. You have three
Yeah,
acts, you have a breakup, and then you have the final act. And like, I do not write that. I cannot write that, but I will read it all day long. But those
yeah,
are
yeah.
not the books that I'm allowed to write. I just can't. Literally cannot write that.
Brilliant.
It's wild. Okay, so we're to the point of the show, Martin, where I am no longer the host of this show. You are now the host of Connected Conversations for Creatives. And so I am going to step back and hand it over to you.
Okay, right then. So you are writing the American Country series, aren't you?
Your real American country.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're in American Country. So tell me a bit. What is it? Obviously, as you know, I'm a music man,
Yes.
and so even in my fiction, music cuts through all my work. And I just wondered, is there an element there for a country western music? You know, your Dolly Partons, your Shania Twains, that kind of stuff, and beyond. Does that feature in your work? Then is it an element of it?
Oh, listen, you're spouting out names that are like that's my heartbeat, because it is literally centered on a country music reality television competition show. Okay.
Ah, okay.
And it centers also on 90s country. Like, it's kind of set in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. And so, like,
Mm,
because that is to me the golden age of country.
yeah,
And I don't think it's because that's what I grew up listening to. It's literally the best era of country music to me, but I think
yeah.
I'm right. Because that's just, but yes. And so, yes, country music plays a huge role in it. The first book was only supposed to be the only book. It wasn't going to be a series, but then I just kept, the characters kept popping up into the show. And I thought, I need to know your story. And so it just kept going. But yes, the first book centers around this guy named Jordan, who his dream since he was in kindergarten is to be a country music star. And he grows up, and he falls in love with his best friend, and that's a tricky matter in and of itself, because should we, shouldn't we, oh no. And then they both
Mm.
have dreams, right? And so they have to decide, are our dreams worth pursuing together? Do we have to pursue them separately? And promises are made, promises are broken, and country music prevails. So yeah, country music plays a huge role in
That's
my
brilliant.
book.
I want to read these books. I
I'm
really do.
excited. I actually, and when I asked about lyrics and starting writing
Yeah,
lyrics, I actually have written several lyrics for my characters, as though they had
yeah.
written the songs. And one of the songs for my book that comes out in October, it was a semifinalist in the international songwriting
Oh
competition.
wow.
And I just had some musicians put some music to it. And so I'm hoping that will be ready to go with the book when it comes out in October. So we'll
That's
see.
brilliant. Oh
I'm
my god, I love
excited.
it. I love all
Yeah.
that. I love it. I love all the connections. I love connecting music with the books and that.
Me
Brilliant.
too. Yes.
So my next question now, based on that, can you sing or play an instrument or both?
Oh, I play lots of instruments. I like to pretend I can sing. I always thought that I would be on Broadway. I am not, clearly. But I do play several instruments, but none of them would do me any good when it comes to country music, because they're
Right.
orchestral. I play French horn and clarinet and trumpet.
Wow.
So I can't really see that in a country band, but I do play instruments, yes.
I'm just trying to think. Could that work though? A new spin-off of country music to bring in some woodwind and brass
Could
instruments.
you imagine? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I have yet to find it anywhere.
Yeah.
You might could get close to it, but I love jazz. Is like jazz is also one of my favorites, and so I have played in several jazz bands before. So yeah, but not
Wow.
country.
That's oh god! I so want to read your books now. I find this really interesting. It's good. It's good being on this side, isn't it? Yeah.
It is, isn't it? It's really awkward sometimes. You're just like, I don't know what to talk about. But so I will throw out there that my whole series kind of I really thought it was going to center more on the music because, they were such, but it really does center more on the characters. I'm a character driven author. And so, it's all about discovering yourself and following dreams and building relationships and making people priorities as opposed to the music. But sometimes we get lost in those dreams. And, that's probably one of my biggest fears is like getting wrapped up in my work and forgetting that the rest of the world exists. But anyway.
So because you're building relationships between characters,
right?
Can that be tricky? Because you aren't. I mean, characters in real life develop in lots of different ways, but and I do have love interests with Judd Stone and that, but I'm not what I'd say a romance writer. So with the romance genre, is that quite tricky? Because that is a real integral part of that genre of making a relationship believable, the ups and the downs. Is that quite tricky? And I guess the second part of my question to that is and we spoke about formula, and you've told me you don't do formula, which is brilliant, but how does each time you do a romance novel, how do you make sure that the relationships are different? You know what I mean? You're not just repeating the same relationships over and over again, even with different characters. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that is a great question, and it's really funny because just like maybe 3 weeks ago, I was having a conversation with one of my writing accountability partners, and he was like, "You understand that you write very emotionally healthy characters," and I was like, yeah, I had a feeling that might be an issue because my background is in marriage and family counseling, and therefore people and relationships are like, they're at the forefront. And I cannot stand when I'm reading a romance book, I'm like, just talk to each other or get out of your own head. I'm just like, I'm sitting there therapizing my characters and I'm just like, what are you doing? And so, I have told myself I will never write a miscommunication trope. I can't stand a miscommunication trope. It might be that somebody sees something happen, like in my first book, she sees something that happens, but there's a little disconnect, but it's not a miscommunication because she attempts to talk about it and it just doesn't work out. And so, but I do try very hard to write emotionally strong characters, even though we all know that even emotionally strong people don't always have successful relationships. But yeah, no, I do very good to, in my opinion, to write different people. Right. They're not cookie cutters of one another. They all have their struggles. And like, so the first book in the series, like I met my husband when we were 13. We were best friends. I put him in the friend zone. It happens. There's a reason it happens that way because you are scared to risk that relationship. So I won't say that I base those characters on us, but I knew the experience. And so I wrote what I knew for that book. The next one, I was like, oh, these kids, they're having a totally different situation. Like they're trying to figure out who they are based on expectations of themselves and not other people. And that's what they have to explore and figure out. And so, it's not hard for me, but also people are my jam, right? Like I can write some people.
And do you then for, especially with the background of work you've done, do you ever base any of your characters on real people?
I haven't yet. I haven't yet, but don't think I won't because I am always watching people. I mean, we used to do like our early marriage dates because we were broke as a joke. We'd go sit at the mall across from the escalator and watch people and make up stories about them. Like people watch like crazy, and I still do. So I haven't based them on anybody specific, but I do take characteristics from people and think, yeah, you should go in that guy because I don't like him very much. That's bad. I probably shouldn't do that, but it's what happens.
Cool, man. Cool.
Yes.
Yeah, we people watch. It's amazing. There's nothing better than sitting down with a cup of coffee or a pint of beer and watching someone. Watching people go by.
I mean, it is and they fascinate me because you think you know what they're about to do and then they kind of surprise you. Or on the flip side, it's like, yeah, I knew that was going to happen. You look at your kid and they do something, you're like, I could have told you that was going to happen, but it was fun to watch anyway.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Brilliant.
That's so funny. Okay, so I'm going to take back the reins just because, I'd hate to put you through the torture.
It's your show.
Because it is awkward and hard sometimes. And I also have had a while to plan out how I would have a conversation with people on the other side, whereas you haven't. You've had like a week. So, but I appreciate your hosting abilities because they were pretty fantastic questions I've never been asked before. Yeah, no, they were good. Okay, so I want to ask you to tell everybody how they can connect with you and your work.
Yeah, I mean, the most obvious place is my website, www.martintracey.co.uk. I really should get a .com going on, but believe me, people in America, you can access it. So www.martintracey.co.uk, or one word, Martin Tracey, Tracey with an E. I'm on all the socials, your Facebooks, your Instagrams, and all these places link off my website. TikTok. I probably need to get a bit more prolific on TikTok, if I'm being honest. Threads, X as it is now, rather than Twitter. So I'm on all them. And I'm usually, you'll find me as Martin Tracey or Martin of Molyneux, going back to my soccer love. Molyneux's the home of my football team, soccer team, Wolverhampton Wanderers. So Martin of Molyneux. And that is spelled Molineux.
I never would have gotten that until you said
it. So. I think it's French. I think God knows why.
Sounds French.
I don't know why a French family once settled in the heart of Wolverhampton, but
why do any of us do anything?
Yeah, but that's how you go. I mean, and probably by the time this airs, my biographies will be out. Definitely the Duran Duran one will be out. They're not biographies. Let me just tell you quickly if I may, because it's such a special project. Early Duran Duran, early 80s, late 70s. They used to go to a club called the Rum Runner, and they become the resident band in Birmingham, the heart of Birmingham. Obviously, Duran Duran are global fame now. But all these photographs were taken by a young kid called Paul Edmond, and he just clicked away. He even caught Boy George as well, and Spandau Ballet and other acts of the time, characters from the time. And it's before these people got famous, so he captures a real innocence in these photographs. And these 3-series set of very early Duran Duran photographs and of other people and the scene and the fashion at the time is being released on 13th of June 2024. I've been absolutely privileged to write the introductions for each of the books. And one of the forewords is by none other than Boy George himself.
Oh my gosh!
From Culture Club, yeah. So he's actually wrote. So because he spent a bit of time in Birmingham. So although they're primarily photograph books, and a picture paints 1,000 words, doesn't it? But there's a lot of background in my introductions and the forewords from the guest artists that gives you a real insight into it. They're incredible. So I just and Maggie Demond, I've got to mention Maggie Demond. It's her brother Paul's sadly not with us now. He died in a car crash, 2015. Yeah, but she obviously owns that collection of photographs, and I've been working with her to make them open to everyone. Lots of unseen photographs, so they're really good. So please go and have a look at them.
Yes,
well as all my other books and things, but everything's on my website. Everything's on my website.
No, that's fantastic. I'm excited to connect with all of that. And hey, I'm going to follow you on all the socials so we can. I'll share it.
I'd love to do that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I'd love to come back. You'd have me again.
Yes, please and thank you. That would be great. Okay, Martin, I have one last question, and it is the big question, and it's like a pass or fail. Nobody's ever failed, but I don't think you'll be the first. But are you ready for this big question? We'll see.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. What is one piece of advice or encouragement you want listeners to walk away with if they hear nothing else?
Okay. Piece of advice is generally you only regret what you don't do, not what you do. If there's something in your heart you want to do, it's better to have had a go at it. You'll always learn from it, even if it is a fail. But is it what is the definition of a fail? What is a fail really? Because you'll always learn something from an experience. So if there's something you really want to do with your own passion and mind and heart, get it done. As long as it doesn't hurt other people, go for it.
No, I love that. You're exactly right, because that you don't hear people on their deathbed going, "Man, I'm really glad I didn't do this. Well,
Yeah.
I guess maybe they might say that, but it's probably nothing good. So,
Yeah,
oh
exactly.
gosh. Well, thank you so much for hanging out and having this conversation. I absolutely want to hang out again because this was fun.
Yeah, it was. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.